This is not a meme. So I'll be talking about Good Times, the original Good Times that came out in the 70s, because I just finished watching it. Yeah, it's crazy. I am one of the few people that just watched Good Times. I hadn't watched Good Times up until now, for many reasons. Most of which I didn't exactly have access to watching it, readily at any point in time. But yeah, so I just watched Good Times. Why did I decide to watch it now? Because I heard as at last year that the animated reboot had dropped, and I decided before I watched the animated reboot that I would like to watch the original. And another reason why I was interested in watching the original was because I really just wondered about it. And the noise around the animated reboot about Seth MacFarlane being a producer on it and how people weren't happy about that based on, oh, why should he be on it and whatnot. A lot of people were even on some, oh, why should a white guy be a producer on Good Times and whatnot. So I was like, what's the big fuss? It's Seth MacFarlane. He's done Family Guy. Family Guy is a good show. It's successful relatively. So yeah, I just said I'd like to watch Good Times, the original one, before I watch the animated version and have a reasonable, understanding of what the show really was about. So now my first encounter with Good Times was in the Boondocks episode. Pretty sure a couple of you would know that, people that have watched Boondocks, like a lot from back in the day, you would know about the Boondocks episode in I think season 4, the last season, where they got broke, like where it really dawned on them that they were now struggling. And Riley made reference to how it's, oh, that granddad, we're like good times now, blah blah blah, that kind of thing. And he, you know, would always, make reference to that. And each time, they would say or do anything, that showed how broke they were in that episode, the good times theme song would, like play for a minute, like just good times. So yeah, so that was my only knowledge of Good Times at the time. I knew it was supposed to be a show about struggling black people. Basically, from that, that's how I got from that. So I decided, to watch it finally, and after watching it, I now kind of understand why people were actually skeptic about Seth MacFarlane working on Good Times. Because here's the thing, Good Times overall, very fun show, very lovely. It's funny. It's it's yeah, it's funny mostly, and the story is good for the most part. But now get this, and this is spoilers ahead for people that don't like spoilers. In case for some reason you still haven't watched Good Times too, and you still like to watch it, and so yeah. As up to season 2, the show, the story, everything is beautiful. It's impeccable. As the beginning of season 3, they killed off the main character, one of the main characters, the father in the show, James Evans. They killed off that character, and they killed him off screen. Like they didn't even show him, go through what killed him or anything. They just said, oh, he died in a car crash. They found out through a phone call, and it seemed off to me because I was like, why kill off like basically one of your most important characters in the show off screen just like that? I said, nah, this feels funny. So I had to go and check, and once you know it, as I checked online, why was this character written off like that? Why was he killed off like that? I saw that he was killed off like that because he had creative differences with the show's developer, Norman Lear. Guess what? You already know. Norman Lear was a white guy. Now you might want to say, oh, it doesn't have to do with race, but yeah, it really does have to do with race. Why? Because the creative differences were based on how black people were being portrayed on the show. James Evans felt that they weren't being portrayed realistically. He felt that he wasn't being portrayed, his character wasn't being portrayed realistically. He felt that, his son wasn't being portrayed realistically. That's the character of his son, James Evans Jr. in the show wasn't being portrayed realistically. He felt that the portrayal of these characters were not a net positive to, perception of black people and what have you in America. So because of this, he got fired from the show because, he didn't want to keep going with, what they wanted to do. So from then, that is really where the show took a funny turn, you know, because now the main character, very crucial to the story, was missing. Along the lines, eventually it would happen that Esther Rowley's character, Florida Evans, who is now supposed to be a widow, ended up, a couple of months down the line, falling in love with some guy. And this guy's name was Carl in the show. Apparently, this guy was an atheist. And this seemed kind of weird because how does a woman who just lost her husband a couple of months ago, who is, arguably a solid, Christian, like she's very, very, very religious, like she's very, very stuck in her Christian ways and whatnot. How does that woman, right, lose her husband a couple of months ago, and then all of a sudden fall in love with and go on to marry an atheist? It seemed kind of off to me, but I said, love and whatnot, blah blah blah. But it still felt kind of off, and that was how the next season. I think around season 4, I think it was after season 4 rather. Yeah, after season 4, I saw that she no longer was being shown on the show again. I saw she wasn't being shown on the opening scene credits, and I saw that she wasn't being shown on the show again. They only explained her away with, the kids were like, mom went, she traveled to another state with Carl for their honeymoon. Oh, she's going to be spending, a year there now because it's better for Carl's health, because the character fell sick in the story. He had cancer, and but he got treated and was recovering and whatnot. So yeah, that's all. But yeah, so that fell off because I was like, that's weird. She's a very, serious, doting, hands-on mom that's very obsessed with always being around her kids and having her kids' best interest at heart and blah blah blah. Though they were relatively adults now, the youngest Michael was already in college. He was now 17, so they could basically take care of themselves, But still, it's kind of weird. And I said, this feels like another one of those. And I went and I searched and I found out that yes, I was right. Because what? She had basically been fired from the show, or basically left even out of anger, for the exact same reason as John Amos, that's James Evans' actor. She left because she felt black people weren't being portrayed properly, especially Jamie Walker's character, James Evans Jr. She felt that he wasn't being portrayed properly and wasn't, giving off what young black men should be shown to be. And in fact, there were even certain, talks about how even the man that acted as Carl, that's the guy she married later on, that the actor also left the show because he wasn't even happy about how, JJ was being portrayed, because he felt it was setting a bad example for young black people. Although she eventually did return to the show in the final season 6, based on certain conditions that she asked to be met, which I feel weren't really met, because one of those conditions was that, JJ should be portrayed in a more respectful way. There wasn't really any difference from the way JJ was being portrayed from before she left and when she came back. So, I don't know, the whole thing just felt weird. I feel at the end of the day, I can understand why people were very wary about, another white guy, in Seth MacFarlane working on the show, being a major producer on the show. I can see why people were actually, feeling some kind of way about it. Because at the end of the day, from what I hear, even after the show dropped, people still protested that, the same problems were still there. And what's very funny is Norman Lear, who is now dead, mind you, because he died in December of 2023, worked on the show with Seth MacFarlane and some other people right before he died, which is crazy, because at the end of the day it means, sure, the same problems could definitely still be there. Although granted, new people also worked on the show too. I even hear Steph Curry worked on the show too, but still, it still doesn't change the fact that even back then in the original show that was dropped in the 70s, there were black people that worked on the show too. But at the end of the day, the main people that had the main say were still white people. And I feel that could be what could be looked at as what led to a lot of black misrepresentation in the show. Overall, at the end of the day, I feel the show is fun. I won't lie, like I enjoyed the show, but yes, the story did fall off at a point, particularly after season 2 and up until the end. From what I even hear, that's the reason why it was even eventually cancelled. It didn't last long, only took like 6 seasons. So yeah, I mean, it's a good watch, but I can see people's reservations about who is producing and why the person shouldn't be producing or whatever. But anyway, now that's really all it is. I will definitely still watch the animated version and see for myself what it's like. And if I see any differences or anything that I want to talk about, I'll probably do another video like this. But if this one does well, I guess I will do a deeper video about the stuff, really like point out the stuff in the story that didn't really add up and whatnot. So yeah, that's really it. That's my whole rant, long ass video.